Well, good afternoon, everybody. I hope that you've had a good lunch. Looks as though a few people have either stayed over lunch or gone home, but there's a good audience here. So thank you very much for coming for this plenary session. Just a few points that I would like to mention before I get into the presentation. The first thing is that I would like to thank, on behalf of all of you, for Sam and her team, and in particular Fran, who's done most of the organisation of this, ably assisted by Adam, Julie, Sophie, Kevin and Liz. And I think you'll all appreciate that to organise an event like this in the months leading up to today and yesterday is a major achievement. And I'd like you to show your appreciation for them. I can't actually see you. All these lights are blazing on. I don't know if it's a good thing or bad, but do the lights have to be this high? Right, okay. Another item I just mentioned now, a number of U3As who were to receive their certificates on Tuesday were not there, unfortunately, on the day, but their certificates are at the reception, and if you would like to collect them on your way out, please do so. The ones that were not at the event on Tuesday were Sherwood, 10 years, Lutterworth, 15 years, Bakewell area, 20, Ilkley District, 20, Warwick District, 25, and Whitby Whaler, 30. So hopefully you're here and you'll be able to pick up your certificates. And well done for passing those anniversaries. The last point is of an admin nature. You should all have your evaluation forms. They will be out tonight. They will be out tonight, so you will get them by email. Please put in all your feedback, good and bad. Hopefully, one or two of the workshops that I presented, I'll get very favourable responses from you. But it's entirely up to you. Who was that heckling there? So, I think I've covered everything, Sam, wherever she is. Right. So we now just move on to a couple of points I'd like to make before the presentation. First of all, I'd like to say thank you to Jane Pavia, who I did see in the auditorium before these lights were shining on me. Jane leaves the NEC today, and I'd just like to express our appreciation for the services she's given to us over the last 3 years as the East Midland trustee. And thank you very much, Jane, and all the very best for the future. And just before, again, I start, I'd like to thank Graham Clark, who also stands down from responsibilities with the Trust today. I've worked with Graham over the last 3 to 4 years on a number of projects, including the future structure of the Trust, the Articles of Association that were approved by the Trust at the EGM, the members of the EGM in Birmingham, and also most recently on this development plan, which I'm presenting today. And Graham has been a very instrumental part of this process, and he's given us a lot of ideas, and I want to appreciate his contribution. I think I can just see you there, Graham, and thank you very much. And this will give you an opportunity to return to the family and also to continue the research and to be published more books. So thank you very much, Graham. Right, so hopefully this works. So this is a presentation on the new development plan. It's at the early stages. It is part of the consultation process still. Some of you may remember Going Forward, which was the previous plan, and we needed to have a new one. And Pam Jones, in one of her last acts of her third year in office, appointed a working group of trustees to start this process of developing this plan. Now, the Going Forward had about 30 objectives that the Trust were going to deliver over the 3 years, and when we produce our final report, we will actually say that most of these objectives have been achieved. But when we started this plan, we thought we would approach it in a slightly different way, that we would actually try and focus on about 5 or 6 real visions, real aims, as opposed to a large number of objectives. And that's what I will be presenting to you this afternoon. I'm very conscious also that Most of you would like to be away by about 3 o'clock. You've got journeys to make, so this won't take too long, but there will be a Q&A session afterwards, and we'll have a small panel to answer the questions. So first of all, we started at looking at what our mission was. And I'm sure that you're all familiar with our 4 missions: support learning U3As and promote the benefits of self-help learning, provide management advice and support across the U3A movement, raise the profile of the movement, and facilitate its growth. Now, in the latest copy of the Trust's annual accounts, for the eagle-eyed people in the audience, you will see that these 4 missions are referred to as aims. But the working group are recommending that these now be called missions in the future. The term aims is more appropriate to the strategic objectives of the Trust that I will be highlighting in a few minutes. And in fact, if you look at going forward, these aims, whatever as they call now, were in fact referred to as missions at that time. So with the consultation process, a questionnaire was sent to all U3As. The response rate was 44%, which may seem to you being fairly low, but it's viewed as being very high as a response to questionnaires. And it's in line with the response rate that the Trust gets to the questionnaires when it sends them out to members. We also receive responses from all sections of the movement, including individual members. Some of you may have written to us in the audience today as a result of an article in Third Age Matters. The Trust Board, known as the National Executive Committee and National Office, made their submissions. The various Trust committees, Pam mentioned the 8 that exist, they submitted their proposals, and members of the newly formed Network Link. And the next few slides list these suggestions from the consultation process that the working group are now presenting to you in this plenary session. The first one is there are 6 of them. The first one is to create a relevant online presence. And Pam has mentioned that there is a need for us to have a digital transformation of the Trust services. It's absolutely imperative that we move in this direction to keep the organisation vibrant in the future, to attract new members, and quite frankly, to deliver the services that you need with a staff of about 10 people. So the suggestions that came from out of the consultation process, keep on saying these are not what we're recommending to you. These are what has come out of the consultation. That we should adopt digital technology to support the 4 missions that I've mentioned a few minutes ago, to make digital technology accessible across the movement, to provide online support for all U3A activities, and to develop a single website which interfaces with both the members and the wider world. To achieve these suggestions, the following points were made. Resources to help run U3As and support their learning activities. Advice and support for interest group leaders and subject advisors. I think we often miss the point that there are about 40,000 interest groups across the U3A. They are the beating heart of the U3A, and they need the support to stay vibrant. Publicity for members generating news stories and educational features. The opportunity for U3As to communicate with one another in areas such as interest groups and research, such as via blogs, etc. So access the Trust social media platforms, such as the ones that exist at the moment, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, and to use them more commonly. Now, these are Trust aims. A lot of your own U3As will have your own way of communicating with members. And links to external sources with high quality subject matter to support the U3A interest groups. The second area that was raised by a lot of you was the U3A name. And it's very clear there are deep-seated views surrounding this. Some of the comments that were made in the submissions were the Trust does not have a recognisable brand image. What does the U3A stand for? What are its benefits? The name is misleading to large sections of the third age population, and the name suggests the background of further education. The U3A has a white middle-class image. It is not inclusive of diverse backgrounds. Now, a lot of you will disagree or agree with these comments, but these were the comments that were made by members. So what were some of the solutions that members came up with? Well, change the name university to universal or united. Just use the U3A and remove university of the third age, strapline underneath. Replace the strapline with learn, laugh and live, or education into the third age. And there needs to be a detailed consultation with members, a referendum. I'm not sure if we're going to go down that. Now, I'm very pleased that Pam mentioned this in her closing comments. All the points I'm going to present to you today are the results of the consultation. They're not the views of ourselves, but this is one area where we have to give you some direction as to the way that we are thinking. There are, as Pam said, significant legal processes to be undertaken if a movement of our size is to change its legal name. Any formal name change could be both expensive and divisive to the membership. But there could be the legal name still, University of the Third Age, and a working name. And what name has the most meaning to our members? Is it U3A or is it University of the Third Age? Should we consider describing ourselves as U3A without any change in legal designation? So, of course, in your U3As, you will describe yourselves as you see fit, but this is for the trust. Now, coincidentally, I walk into this auditorium on Tuesday and I see this, U3A. And the suggestion is that, like BMW, people know that BMW stands for high performance, high quality car. Do you actually know what it stands for? Well, some of you do. Another, CNN. People know that it's an international news channel, but do you actually know what it stands for? Right, okay. So, the suggestion is that perhaps we focus on a slight rebranding that we are U3A, and that these three characters actually start to resonate with people as indicating an organisation which is for further education into the third age of life. So I have tried to explain the legal issues surrounding this, but that is the sort of thing that might be considered as a way to just try and project our image in a slightly different way. Topic 3, raise the trust profile with the print and social media. And the suggestions were that we should work with the media so that the trust is a primary point of contact for issues relating to third ages. Constantly, there are items in the media that affect our generation. However, journalists do not tend to contact us for our views on a subject currently in the headlines. And further develop the strategy for the trust use of social media for both itself and member U3As. Oh, this is thirsty. All right, fourth one is raise the trust profile externally. Develop a plan to offer U3A's participation in retirement programs with tailor-made publicity. Large companies, trade unions, professional bodies, central and local government have retirement programs for their staff members who are reaching retirement age. And perhaps we should be considering a package or even going to speak to some of these retirement seminars about the benefits of the U3A. Develop a plan at a national level to engage with institutions that have contact with third agers, to promote the value of the U3A in keeping body and mind active and to combat loneliness and isolation in third agers. And one of the suggestions, Sam mentioned it yesterday, learning, not lonely. Perhaps we should be going to the BMA or GPs and suggesting that they may have, instead of a medical prescription, that they have a social prescription, that they recommend in certain circumstances that their patients consider joining the U3A. Consider searching for high-profile individuals to be our patrons. Helen Mirren, Judy Dench, Joan Bakewell were put forward. Somebody put forward Mick Jagger to be one of our patrons. I don't think Jumping Jack Flash is even prepared to consider that he's in the third age of life. I think he's perennially second age. And to persuade the scriptwriters of EastEnders, Coronation Street or The Archers to have a storyline, I'm not free today, I have a U3A meeting. There were some other suggestions that came out, which we're not actually going to put up here, but there was a suggestion that we need a bit of scandal within the U3A movement. And the suggestion was that perhaps the ballroom dancing group, there could be some wife and husband swapping in a ballroom dancing group, and that would hit the headlines. There was even a more dramatic suggestion that there could be a murder within the bridge club because one partner failed to follow suit. So I don't think we quite need that publicity, but it would be nice if we could raise our profile a bit more externally. So the fifth subject was national and regional growth. So we need it is suggested, and I tend to agree, we need a detailed research into third age population data and the national profile of U3A membership. And it's vital to have, if we're to have this, we have to have this if we're to have continued growth of the movement. To use this data to develop a plan, to concentrate on areas of below average U3A representation in conjunction with existing U3As, of course. And why is it that the U3A is overrepresented in the south of the UK? Why is there a gender imbalance? Why is the U3A underrepresented in cities? So we do need to try and get some more data before we can develop a plan to actually have some promote some regional and national growth. Continue to support the growth of U3A networks across the UK. This is one of my own interests. Pam referred to it in her comments. It became very clear to us that there wasn't the communication between the grassroots and the trust, and that the network link may be a way to achieve this. And hopefully, as it progresses and matures, that will achieve perhaps some more regional growth across the UK. To continue the promotion of our volunteering ethos, absolutely vital within the movement, and highlight the U3A as a volunteer movement externally. And set up an advisory board of experts in areas such as education, technology, third age research, to advise the trust on new ideas to further develop the movement. Number 6, quite important, how the plan could be implemented and funded. Well, some of the suggestions were to produce a strategy that will use the skills and expertise residing within a membership of over 400,000 plus to assist with the delivery of the plan. Now, one of the initiatives that Pam introduced in her 3 years was to start to invite members with specialist skills onto the various working groups and committees of the trust. And I have to say that has gone apace, and it's been remarkably successful. Members who have a specialist knowledge are prepared to give up some time, not as much time as trustees, to provide their expertise to the particular group. And that will move apace, because if we are to implement this plan, we will need the assistance of specialist members who have specialist skills. We do not have all those skills residing within the board. We need to produce a fully costed analysis of the plan and the staff in a national office that will be required to deliver it. Apply to the big lottery or other charitable sources for education-related grants, particularly in connection with the emerging digital platform. And hot off the press, last week, the office, Sam, submitted an application to the Big Lottery Fund for a grant to assist us with the digital transformation of the trust services to members. And I'm hoping that by Christmas we might have a nice present from the Big Lottery. Also, it was suggested that we might consider sponsorship of this conference and AGM. Now, a lot of you made many suggestions across the whole range of subjects as how we might be able to assist you. Some of them were strategic, the ones I've highlighted. Other ones were not so strategic, but they do need to be addressed because they are of interest. And I just give you a bit of a flavour for the ones that were proposed by you in the consultation. Regular regional network induction meetings for new trustees. A larger selection of merchandise to promote the U3A movement. Streamlining some of the national workshops and study days so that members in other parts of the country can actually access them. I'm sure a lot of you have been to theatres and cinemas around the country and picked up plays from the West End and RSC. And the sort of idea to try and involve members across the country and involve them in workshops and study days in one particular location. To negotiate discounts at a national level for U3A members, and to establish a publishing arm as an outlet for the many books produced by members. I have to say I'm amazed at the sheer number of and variety of books that are featured in my own right in TAM in every issue. So, what is the plan? The timetable of this plan? Well, this is the second stage, I guess. We've consulted with you. You've sent your ideas into us. We're now presenting to you your own ideas, and we'll have a Q&A in a minute. In the October NEC, we'll receive the initial recommendations from the working group. December, hopefully the NEC will approve its recommendations. And then in early 2019, the working parties will be created, and as I mentioned, we will rely on members to help staff and run and participate in these working groups on each of these subjects. So we will start the implementation. Those topics that require detailed planning and or significant funding will be implemented over the term of the plan, and where appropriate, there will be further consultation, of course, with the members. So I've covered a lot of development plan subjects, and thank you for your attention. It's now your chance to say and give your own comments about the points I've raised. We have a panel. They're going to come up here in a minute. Ed Link, one of the trustees, Sam, our CEO, myself, and Pam Jones in her last official capacity as, well, I still call you chairman of the trust, Pam. So it's over to you now. Thank you very much. I have the advantage of being able to deflect any awkward questions to one of these three people. There are microphones, I think, all around, are there? Do the lights have to be quite this? Do you find the lights difficult?
I'm afraid they do.
They do they?
They're awful. You can only shade your eyes to see the...
Right. Okay. So the first question. If you could give your name and U3A, please. This is thirsty work.
Can you hear me? Oh, good.
No, I think this is mine.
Sorry, it's Clive Edgington from Stroud, U3A. Just looking locally at how we can extend the careers of older members who can't actually get out anymore. And I'm just wondering, I mean, in the 21st century, we ought to be able to put people who can't actually get out together by one means or another. And I'm just wondering, has this a place in your plan?
Well, I mean, one answer is the virtual U3A. We do have a representative here from virtual U3A. I don't know if you're in a position, if we mic you up, Linda, to say a few words, but that is one area that for some time has been in existence, the virtual U3A. Would people like to know a bit more about the virtual U3A? I mean, are you in a position, Linda, to... We'll give you a few minutes. We'll answer some other questions, then you can come back. Could Linda, do you want to come out, Linda, and be mic'd up? Oh, you just want me to say one thing? Oh, okay, well, put the mic over then, fine. If you could just give some background, Linda, so that...
Well, we have been going for a very long time, and 10 years nearly. It was started by people who felt just the same way as the person who asked the question. What do you do when you can't get out to your U3A anymore? And what you do is you join the virtual U3A, which is all online. And I think should be a load of leaflets out on the table in the hall if you want to take one of those, and you can contact me and I'll be happy to talk to you about what we're doing at the moment. We've got, it's a growing area, and there are going to be lots of people who can't get out to go to their U3A. So, that's...
I mean, it is an interesting point.
Sorry, I just wanted to respond to say thanks ever so much, because I, for one, certainly didn't know anything about it, and I'm absolutely delighted and will, be very keen to look.
Yes.
Thanks. It's Clive Edgington.
I think you do raise an interesting point. I think we should put virtual U3A into our plans, so at least when the final paper is presented, then virtual U3A will be in there and we can say some words about it. So thank you very much. But there was a presentation from virtual U3A that came into the consultation.
Robert Hadland, Hastings and Rother. I just wanted to ask a question or raise a point about the idea of sponsorship of this conference. I can see that there'd be a financial benefit, but I think it might, particularly at this stage, when there are questions about the strength of the U3A brand, that it might not be helpful. It might dilute that in terms of, this is the Stannis Stairlift U3A conference, that the U3A bit might get lost.
I think it's very dodgy.
Thank you. I mean, you're responding and giving your views. They all go into the consultation. Sorry?
He works for Stannis.
Stannis.
Hello, Ivan Smith, Leak Staff's U3A. Can you hear me? Yes? First of all, my colleague next door said, in response to the virtual U3A, that I said that a lot of the people who are housebound would not be digitally au fait.
That's true.
That's a fact of life. Another generation or so, they will be. But now they're not. But my colleague here said, that's where a buddy system would come useful. So maybe that's something we should look at, to have a digital buddy that would help them to sort of get online, etc. The question I wanted to ask was, in the context of raising the U3A's profile, whether it be the Archers or whatever, the only way I think you'll do that properly is to employ a PR company. I'm not in any way associated with a PR company. But I think to do that properly, and obviously the finances available is a key factor, but that's the only way you will get the PR in the magazines, in the newspapers, in the TV. So please have a look at that system. They're not that expensive if you choose the right one.
Perhaps we have a member. But I think Sam wants to just respond to one point that was raised then.
So we have put a bid into the big lottery building connections fund, which had a really short-term round, had about 6 weeks to put an application in because it's for a particular fund. And it does include, the focus of it is on improving digital conversations, including the website and including connecting people who might find it difficult to connect with each other otherwise. But included in that was an element of supporting volunteers who are digital buddies or connectors, whatever you want to call them. Now, obviously, these things are very competitive. So you put your application in, you cross your fingers, and we'll see. And if we are successful, we'll know towards Christmas. But it's certainly in the thinking of the organisation that we need to build a team of people who are able to support members who aren't digitally connected or confident, so that they then can use, if they can, digital equipment. And also for people who potentially could be a buddy who is just taking information to people who will never be able to feel confident on going online. So covering those two aspects, because there are people who are not confident and for whom accessing things digitally would be a step too far, and we can't forget those people either.
Christine Major, Leon C, U3A. Looking through the topics, I couldn't see any mention of learning at all. And since these aims have begun becoming missions, then I would have thought learning fits in all of them, but it does particularly fit in the first one about creating relevant online presence. Regardless, it's not necessarily ages of people who don't like accessing online. I think it's a mental block sometimes. There was one mention about teaching, and we need to remember that learning by no means is dependent on teaching.
Ed, do you want to say something on that? No?
What can we say? Yes. Yes. I thought it was implicit in
The whole thing.
in the whole thing, in the first mission, support for learning in the U3A, and that has
Yes,
to
but
be...
it needs to be explicit in the aims. If the aims become missions,
Well,
it needs to be through it. You've got to tell people, we may know the story, but other people who look at it don't know the story.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, there are issues with the veracity of material that we supply, and I mean, it's not just a case of technology enablement, it's not even just a case of the digital skills of our members. I mean, it's managing the content of how we do that, and that's all part of the consideration. But the whole thing has to be user-driven. There'll be an element of push, but mostly it'll be pull, and what people want and can use will be top of a priority, and that's how we'll drive the whole thing forward.
Sam?
So what I want to say was that actually, just building what Ed has said, that certainly education and learning in all of its varieties is central to all of the thinking that everybody is doing about our future. So we have we already know we have masses of resources through shared learning projects, through resources our members put together, through resources members use, through our subject advisors. And what we want to do is try and make that more easily connected and available to everybody who are connecting with each other and with the trust and with volunteers. So actually, wherever you are, you can connect up with that huge richness of education and learning experience that we have amongst the movement.
John Lloyd, Wearside U3A. I have to have a say, I'm sorry. Could I put the plea to the Trust that they seriously consider trying to communicate their thinking to the general membership at regular intervals? A plenary session once a year is not enough to keep members up to date with the rate of change that is taking place in the Trust. They should at least see how many meetings the NEC have, what they're talking about, keep them informed, rather than tell us once a year what you might do and what you're thinking of doing. There is ease of communication now. There is a newsletter every month. What does it say that the NEC are actually doing or thinking? That could be the line to connect back to the membership and not feel that they are told when it's done.
John, I was disappointed we've not had a question from you so far, so you've not let me down. Thank you very much. Yes, I mean, absolutely right. I mean, clearly we can't have physical meetings like this other than once a year. The cost would be too great, but we are trying to improve the communication. And I think the office newsletter, I think there are about 10,000 members, getting signed up to it. There are 400,000 members. We have in the office newsletter every month, there is a section for the NEC to update the members on what's happening within the NEC. And I promise you, as Pam did before, to try and get over the main issues that are debated at least twice. We meet twice a year, 6 times a year, every 2 months. So I will try and do that. But we have to, that is a main communication which is fairly instant. Otherwise, there can be items in TAM, etc. But those are the 2 mediums that we have to communicate with members. So I really do encourage people to sign up to the office newsletter to get the more frequent communications. Has that answered your question or not? No.
When it's acted upon, yes, it will.
When it's acted upon?
Yes.
Right, so you want to know when something's happened rather than what's intended?
What you're thinking.
What are we thinking? Oh, sorry, I'd misunderstood. Yes, thinking.
If I take the point about discounts for members,
Yeah.
how the trust look at advertising and the potential of using 400,000 members to generate income. It would be better to do that than necessarily have sponsorship. And the old ones might remember that conferences were sponsored by Saga a year or 2 ago.
I mean, Sam, do you want to say anything on that or not? Oh.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I think all forms of income are worth investigating in all of its aspects because every form of income has got pros and cons attached to it, and we need to look at those in the round to make sure that at every stage none of the movement and what it stands for is compromised, but we make the most of every opportunity that we can in terms of resources for the trust. And I think the NEC and the office and the volunteers and everybody else, we of course will do our absolute best to make sure that everybody's involved with as much as possible. And this year has been very, very fast moving, as you all know. We have tried our absolute best to use all of those mechanisms to keep you informed, and we need to keep trying and keep going and making sure you do feel that you're involved in everything that's happening. But for all of you that aren't signed up for the newsletter, which, as Ian said, is the most instant way that we can communicate with you and ask you things, because in the newsletter we ask you things often through asking you to fill in questionnaires and the like, and I know we have to be careful with questionnaires that we don't kill you with them, because otherwise you'll be saying, oh my goodness, we've just got rid of all this paperwork and look what's happening, we're just getting loads of questionnaires now. So we need to get a balance with that. But for those of you who aren't signed up for the newsletter or who know people that aren't, please encourage people to do that, because that's very helpful, particularly when we need to do things quickly, and sometimes we do. Often you can take time, there's time to think, there's time to plan, but on occasion we need to ask you things quickly so that we can move things quickly for you.
Thank you. I've been concentrating on this side of the auditorium, but there are questions coming from the right.
Can I just say
Oh, sorry, Ed. Sorry, Ed.
I think I've been switched off again. No. I just say a word. If you want a bit of human contact, talk to your regional trustee.
I was thinking
I don't know about some of the other regions, but in Scotland we have a regional committee and they have regional assemblies, which I regularly attend. We work together, and as far as I can in confidence, I keep them informed of what we're thinking, and more importantly, get their thinking. Communication is a two-way event. It's not just about cascading down stuff, which we're constantly criticised about. So we have a whole network of regional trustees, so please talk to them and support your regional organisations as well.
Thank you. I have focused on this side, apparently. There are questions from up there. Yes.
Put it close to your mouth. Number 5.
There's one here. Yeah.
Seems to be a perennial problem. It's Sal Cook, is it?
It's Sal Cook from Bridlington U3A. That's probably why they switched the microphone off.
Yeah.
Could I just make a plea? It's an observation. In all your aims, in all your missions, whatever you term them as, please do not describe what you think you're going to put in a digital strategy. The dangerous line I've seen so far is about a website. You are not going to be in the game of just creating a website for the trust. If you are looking at digital, you are looking at the whole aspect of the business, including especially the learning. That may include apps. That may include digital radio. That may include a whole range of things. So please be very cautious about the terms you use that then go further out into the community, which will then translate into, oh, we're just having a new website. So just be very careful that in this day and age we talk very sensibly about the phrase you used right at the beginning about having a new online presence, because online presence is where it's at. And I used the analogy yesterday. If anybody uses booking.com and they use booking.com on a tablet or on a phone, chances are people will use an app. We haven't even touched on apps for U3A. You're talking about a website. You need to stop using the terminology and just talk about the principles of what you want to achieve, and then let the specialists come in and advise you as to how to do it. So that's the end of my rant for the day. I apologise.
Ian?
That sounds like an office, Sal. Ed, do you want to say anything?
There's a balance to be struck here between using technical terms and words that everybody will understand who haven't got the digital knowledge, digital skills. So some of the words, this is not disrespecting the audience, it's just trying to communicate concepts. But of course, in the whole of the digital transformation that we're trying to do, it will be user-driven in terms of what the members need across the 4 missions that we've spoke about. But in terms of implementation, then we've got issues of priorities and resourcing and how we do that. But of course, part of that will then be the technical implementation of that. And we have learned lessons of how we have done that in the past. And those lessons will be taken on board.
Yes, there's a lady here.
I thought it was me, sorry.
Oh, sorry. Yes, if you got the mic. I just can't see you, sorry. Don't know where you are. Whoever's got the mic.
He's going now.
Heather Rowe Penzance. One of your suggestions was to encourage such as the media to view the U3A as a spokesperson for the third age. Reflecting on that, it does strike me that this would mean that you'd have to be able to kind of strike a position on a whole range of issues that can affect the elderly. Anything from how should social care be financed, should bus passes and the winter fuel allowance remain, should statins be widely prescribed. And I'm not certain that you're the sort of organisation that could develop positions like that at the speed that the media want.
So I think we start with what we know we can contribute to. And what we know we can contribute to is conversations around lifelong learning and the impact that organisations like this organisation has. We can contribute to that conversation because we know about it. We're not in a position at the moment to contribute to a whole range of conversations because we simply don't know enough about what our membership think about those things, because the thing that is important to our membership is the U3A model of lifelong learning. So I think having the opportunity to contribute where we can, where we have expertise, is a really good point. I think that's come out of the consultation at the moment. And there may be opportunity in the future for us to consider a wider range of thinking, but at the moment, what we know we can talk about is what we know.
Who's got a microphone?
I have.
Right.
I'm John Lewis from Bingham. I just wondered, maybe I've missed it, but I'd like to know what these immense and complex and expensive legal issues would be involved in us changing our name or using a different name, and whether those complex legal issues would include dropping the strapline, the University of the Third Age, from which is what I have done for 2 years in all our publicity materials, and I note that actually it's only used in the tablecloth in front of your table, and it's dropped in all the materials for the conference and in all the PowerPoint presentations and in the banner. And as far as and the same was the case last year. And as far as I know, no letter has yet arrived from Messieurs Sue Grabbis and Runn saying that we're going to suffer these expensive consequences.
Okay, so I can answer that question. Your charity's legal name is the name that you have when you first become a charity, which will be when you signed your constitution. And your constitution will say something like South Woodford University of the Third Age, or whatever you are, wherever you are situated. And that is the name that your charity is born with and what it is registered as, where depending on the part of the country of the United Kingdom where you happen to be, will depend on a number of factors. Now, that is different from a working name. So, as a working name, many of you will refer to yourselves as South Woodford U3A, or whatever your local area is. And you can do what you wish around using your working name, so long as your members are comfortable with you using whatever you decide to call yourselves. To change your legal name, to change the legal name of this movement would require us to get 1,033 U3As to change their title with the appropriate charity commission that had responsibility for them. And that is an enormous piece of work. And that would be very expensive in terms of time, in terms of liaison with every one of those charity commissions, because we'd have to get an explanation as to why we were changing all of those names. With all of the committees around the country, we'd all have to agree to that change of name. It is not a short piece of work. And many charities, network charities, from time to time think about how they reflect themselves in the wider world and about their name. And what they do is they decide to think about their working title, a shared working title, which is much easier to use and change as a group rather than changing your legal name. And so that is why it is not completely straightforward in terms of saying, well, actually, we just want to change our name from now on. The other thing, of course, to consider is that the U3A movement is a worldwide, global movement. And we belong to that movement because we are called the University of the Third Age. And actually, we all know and talk about ourselves as the U3A. But the connection, both with a worldwide movement, and our historical beginnings, back when the thinking about university wasn't about university in the traditional sense as we know it, but as we know that people came together, and we called it a university because it was about people coming together to learn. that we can actually continue to have all of our history to be part of a global movement, to not have to go through an enormous procedural change, which would take us a long time to change, by actually agreeing a working name that we're going to use rather than a change of legal name. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Anybody got the microphone? No? Anybody want to speak?
No more
Hand.
questions.
Oh, then this gentleman here. Lady, I think is a person.
Ruth Harris from Brackley U3A. I think that the U3A is a wonderful movement because it brings people together through learning to form friendships and have social activity. I'm really concerned about your aims to have virtual websites and to pursue the technological digital aspect. Because I've worked for the last 15 years running a charity that promotes creative activities with elderly people. And so I have a lot of experience of people at the end of their lives. Now, if they can't get to a meeting, why can't they get to a meeting? Is it mobility? So perhaps we could run share lifts or promote a local taxi service. If they can't get to a meeting because they can't see, really is digital expertise going to help them too much? And what people need really is not a computer. They need other people. They need people to be friendly to them, to hold their hand, to listen to them, to speak to them, a phone call, someone to give them a hug. That's what people need, not more technology. Thank you.
Thank you very much for a very passionate statement. You've made a statement and we have to take notice of that.
I think you've just answered your own question. I mean, yes, we're a human movement, 400 and odd thousand members. I mean, nobody's saying we're going to replace you all with robots. Yes, go out and do it. People do. It's up to you. You're in your own U3As. I mean, one of the things that digital can provide, in thinking about it, is the connectivity and the ideas that suggest with people that that's the way that you can extend the hand of friendship. So it's a communication device, merely, in that sense.
If I could just add something to that, and that is to say that, from what I just said, that is to say that, of course, absolutely, what we're here to do is meet together, spend time together, learn together with each other in the same room. Of course, that's absolutely essential to everything we're doing. What we're talking about is actually taking advantage of anything else, any other digital opportunity that we have to add to that, not instead of. So it's to extend what we do, not to replace it. That's very much at the heart of what this conversation is about.
Mike Allen, Harrow U3A. I have created 30-odd PowerPoint presentations on British government politics, 30-odd more on United States government politics, 16 on history of democracy, and about 8 on European history, which is ongoing. I've contacted the Resource Centre twice, some years ago, didn't get anywhere. Contacted them recently, told to email a certain lady, no reply. I want to make these available for members. I think that one of the things you should concentrate on is how we can make resources more easily available to other members of the U3A.
100%, absolutely, that's so important. So we have, amongst all of you, masses of useful and fantastic resources. And what we want to do is extend the resources that we offer over and beyond the DVD material that we've had. So we still got the DVD material, we're still going to use it, but we want to use all of those resources that you have so kindly offered us before, and I'm sorry we didn't take those before. We will be coming out to ask you what you have, and so that we can build a repository of all of those fantastic resources to share. And we want to find an easy way to share it and for you to find it, because you do have amazing material and we want to be able to maximise the use of that. So thank you.
Have you got a microphone? I think we need a mic. Are there any other questions after?
Can I just add a small postscript to the last questioner? I have very recently had reason to use the Resource Centre, which has been massively rejigged very recently. And I must say that the online catalogue and the standard of service is absolutely brilliant. And the resources that are available there are second to none, in my opinion. So try again.
Thank you. I think there's a question down here. We're all getting towards 3 o'clock. We will take questions, but I am aware that some of you do need to leave fairly soon.
Krista Lloyd, Wearside U3A. This is my first AGM and conference, and I am really pleased I came. I want to go back to the digital side of things and make a suggestion that in the newsletter we have a section called Glossary, and that we request that newsletter editors in each U3A have a page in their newsletter that updates people who are not able to get online and look at the online side of things with what is happening in the newsletter and what the glossary is saying about translating terms into understandable language. And this will be a learning for all of us. And I particularly like the idea of a buddy system. And I think I will be volunteering within my U3A, as it is something I have been informally doing with some of our members in order to allow them to access things on the internet that they would have not been able to do without some help. So thank you very much, everybody. I think it is a great conference, and I look forward to many to come.
Thank you. Thank you very much for those comments.
Hello. Over on the
Hello. If you have a mic, please speak into it.
Hello.
Yep.
Yes, thank you.
Yep. Okay.
David Gill, Rugby U3A.
Go on.
Don't vote. Sorry, I have a rather. Could you put the camera down, please?
We can hear you.
Thank you.
Go on. Keep talking.
David Gill, Rugby U3A. I'm sorry to raise a rather technical question, but I've heard the support for Beacon and Site Builder, and I know that the central office support both of those. I hope that when you're introducing these updates to technology, that you don't forget the U3As that choose to have their own websites and own management information systems, and give us the information so that we can link into these new items that become available, and not just the ones that you're centrally supporting.
Well, that's the case now.
I think that's noted, but do you want to say anything or not?
No, I think you raise an interesting point of, I'm not sure how we sort it technically yet, but you raise an interesting point, which is noted. Yeah.
Anybody else got a mic? Anybody want to ask a question? Right. On that basis, thank you very much. we'll declare the plenary session closed and have a very safe onward journey home. Thank you very much.